Thank you, Hans. And I put up the slide with the question so that people who didn't attend the station also can see what this was about. So we asked about data integration and but in particular how to set up linked databases dealing with heterogeneous data. And what was quite strong was that people were a little bit confused about this first question, and automatically the question came up, why should we actually share data? And after some discussion, it crystallized that we need to think carefully about what the purpose is of sharing data and how it could be beneficial for those involved. So we shouldn't just share data just for the purpose of sharing data because it's nice to have, but we should think about what do we want to do with these data, and think about whether it should be project specific or whether they can also be general databases. And there were several discussions around data access. So instead of digging deeper into the question, there was a lot of discussion around data sharing in general, data access, data quality. In terms of data access, one of the key messages that came out was that data exchange seems to be working quite well between collaborating scientists. So for many people, having a good professional collaboration was key to sharing data and exchanging information. So their recommendation was that as a first step, if you want to exchange data with colleagues, you should put effort into establishing a good working collaboration. Then there was a strong criticism of some of the big organizations that do gather data from around the world and put them in central databases, but they make access to these databases very difficult. So there was a call for these organizations to think about the responsibility that they have in handling what some people consider to be public data. So are the data from the different countries that are collated in a central database, are they a public good? And if yes, then the organizations, they should be reminded of their role of making cleaned, good quality data publicly available. In terms of data quality, there was some agreement that there will always be an issue with data quality, and that it is really important to have good metadata that allows any user to see what the data are about, and also that there is supporting documentation that helps the user to understand how the data were collected and what people are looking at. So linked databases, it was felt, should be treated in the same way as any databases that you access from colleagues or from public sources. So you need to use professional standards, think about what you're looking at, use quality criteria to judge the quality of the data, and not just take the quality for granted. And this then means that the people who set up the databases, that can be sectoral activities, that they also need to do their homework and make sure that they follow professional standards to have a database that is understandable and has the metadata that can be looked at and understood by the users. And as a last point, when linking databases, it would be important, and that seems kind of logical, but looking at public databases, it does not always seem to be the case, is that we should have raw data linked into these databases and not data summarized or integrated in the form of reports. So there should be efforts to set up databases that have raw data that can then be linked. Thank you.
Thank you. I was group number 2, I think. Okay. I try to do it a bit shorter than you do.
Excuse me, I was just wondering, is a question allowed immediately to...
Yes, why not?
Yeah.
Yes, why not?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wonder...
I give you the microphone.
Since this
So thanks for this. So I was wondering, since you evidently the question of reluctance to share data came up. So I was wondering, did you discuss the type of reasons behind it that some organizations or people might want to restrict use of data, particularly raw data, perhaps uninterpreted data, because of not just because of the willingness to own it, but somehow to prevent some unexpected and sort of negative consequences of data coming out. I mean, in terms of preventing panic or whatever, kind of those type of reasons that might be more justified.
Yes, that was briefly discussed. There was some support for scientists who say that they want to use the data first and gain a competitive advantage for their own position, basically, which makes sense. And this could be, well, you could work around this by, for example, having a direct data sharing agreement with a group of scientists, with a certain institution. For the higher level, for the big organizations, I think there are several reasons were discussed why these organizations do not want to make the data publicly available. Some are probably valid reasons, but sometimes it may also seem as if they are do not want to share the information because they want to keep the monopoly in a way. So I think that needs to be discussed further to see what exactly are the reasons for not making these databases publicly available, and how could access be gained.
And the internet-based data, did you discuss that? I mean, how it's all changing now because of that?
The question is about internet-based data, whether we discussed that, and that it is all changing. It was discussed a little bit marginally, and I think one of the key comments was that things like Google, for example, that are using big data in a novel way, are also having an impact on data use worldwide, and how people come up with innovative ways of using the data.
Can I just say, maybe also what can be also maybe typically one else issue with data is also the question of the culture, being an environmentalist or being an epidemiologist or being a sociologist. You don't have the same way to classify your data, to share your data. Some anthropologists are very, it's like they don't want even to show their. I don't know if it is an issue that has been discussed, but maybe this is typically one else also. It's we have really in transdisciplinary approach like that. We don't approach data the same way.
Last question I propose. We have to move on with the other sessions.
It's not really a question, but mostly a remark, and completely agree with the last of already. This is a real problem with the legal and ethical aspects of data, which concern the different domains, which are not the same. For example, when it's concerned the data concerning human individuals, you are protected and you have some legal aspect. Once for the biodiversity, you need, because of the Nagoya Protocol, to publish and to open your data. It's a legal aspect, and you have some ethical aspects. So maybe there is something to have a shorter guide to say that what kind of legal and ethical aspects are linked and according to different kind of data. The second thing that most of the people don't know, we lost data. So there is database, but we lost a lot of data. For the ecological data, already 90% of the raw data that have been published are lost, completely lost. So we need to have also data rescue. So this is a really important point, not only data mining, but data rescue, and to have some depository, which quite expensive because you need to have curators and to save this data.